Gartner says 40% of enterprises will decommission AI agents by 2027 after discovering governance gaps through production incidents. Not the worst organizations. The current median. Here is what that combination means, the authorship inversion. That describes one Frontier Labs internal workflow is, from this week, a capability your teams can begin approximating. The governance frameworks for that world are still being written. 3 questions. Do you know which AI tools are generating code on your systems? Have you classified those tools by autonomy level? And do you have a documented provenance chain for AI authored outputs in production? Which of those 3 does your organization already have an answer for?
Let's get into it.
In May 2026, more than 80% of the code merged into Anthropic's production codebase was written by Claude. Not assisted, written, tested, and submitted by the model. This is the Hamberger report. I'm Andreas Hamberger, Enterprise Architect, Wellington. 16 months earlier, that figure was in the low single digits. The Anthropic Institute published this data on the 4th of June 2026 in a paper by Marina Favaro and Jack Clark, worth sitting with the numbers before reaching for the implications. In the second quarter of 2026, the typical Anthropic engineer was merging 8 times as much code per day as in 2024. On the hardest engineering problems the company tracks internally, Claude's success rate climbed to 76%. 6 months earlier, it was around 26%, a 50 percentage point rise in half a year. I have a name for what just happened: the authorship inversion. The point at which an AI system becomes the primary author of production software at the organization building it. Anthropic has crossed that point. The question is not whether you find that remarkable. It clearly is. The question is what it means for governance, accountability, and provenance across the enterprise landscape. The Anthropic data shows 2 identifiable inflection points. The first came in early 2025, when Claude began to run code rather than simply suggest it. The second came in 2026, when models began to work autonomously over longer time horizons. This is not an isolated story. GitHub is on pace for roughly 14 billion code commits across all of 2026. The platform saw approximately 1 billion in all of 2025. The authorship inversion is not confined to one closed proprietary environment. The difference between open source and closed source instances matters. In the Linux kernel, human maintainers retain explicit authority over what gets merged. The review culture is adversarial in the productive sense. The governance question in the open source case is about review throughput, not about whether human judgment remains the gate. On the 9th of June 2026, Fable 5 reached general availability, the first publicly accessible Mythos class model from Anthropic. 2 things happened in the same week. Anthropic disclosed the current state of the authorship inversion, and they made the capability class driving that inversion available to everyone with an API key. The question shifts from what Anthropic is doing to what your teams are about to start doing. On the 26th of May 2026, Gartner predicted that by 2027, 40% of enterprises will decommission autonomous AI agents due to governance gaps discovered only after production incidents. 40%. The diagnosis is precise. Enterprises are treating AI agent governance as binary, either locked down or fully trusted. And that binary is the root cause of failure. Gartner identifies 4 agent autonomy levels: observe, advise, act with approval, and act autonomously. Applying uniform governance creates 2 risks simultaneously. Restricting low autonomy agents stifles value. Under-restricting high autonomy agents creates operational and compliance exposure. Rate these 2 findings together. Anthropic is governing AI that writes more than 80% of its production code. Most enterprises are still learning to govern AI that sends an email. This is not a technology gap. It is a governance velocity gap. The organizations building the most capable AI systems have operational necessity on their side. The incentive to get governance right is direct. The Hamberger report publishes daily. Subscribing puts tomorrow's episode in your feed. Lethal by Design runs Fridays on this channel. examining what happens at the sharpest end of that accountability question. The authorship inversion creates a specific accountability challenge with no clean precedent. When AI authors the majority of an organization's code, the software supply chain takes on a new character. The question, who wrote this and can we trace it, now yields a new class of answer. The model wrote it, version 4.8, the 14th of March 2026. The engineer reviewed it before merging. That is a traceable answer. The provenance chain exists, but it raises immediate downstream questions. What was the model trained on? What version? What safety properties were active at the time? Most enterprises procuring AI coding tools are third-party deployers of tools whose internal alignment properties they neither configure nor audit. The accountability gap between the frontier lab and the downstream deployer is structural. On the 10th of June 2026, the European Commission published the final Code of Practice on transparency of AI-generated content. From the 2nd of August 2026, providers and deployers in the European Union will be required, under AI Act Article 50, to clearly indicate AI-generated content. Provenance is becoming a legal obligation for organizations past their own authorship inversion threshold. The operational implication is direct. Your AI tool generates the contract. The regulator wants to know who authored it. New Zealand government agencies completed the first annual self-assessment cycle against the minimum cybersecurity standards on the 30th of April 2026. Most NZ organizations, public and private, are nowhere near their own authorship inversion. Many are still establishing what AI tools their teams are actually using. The frontier capability that produced the 80% figure at Anthropic became publicly accessible on the 9th of June 2026. That is not a hypothetical. It is in the API catalog. Code generation adoption is not linear. It follows the same curve as every other AI tool, except that its outputs are embedded in the infrastructure that everything else runs on. There is also a specific angle under the Privacy Act 2020 and Information Privacy Principle 3A, operative from the 1st of May 2026. If AI-generated code processes personal information, the provenance chain matters. The question deserves a mapped answer, not an unconsidered one. On the sovereignty side, the Allied AI Safety Institute Network, the UK AI Safety Institute, the Japan AI Safety Institute, and the EU AI Office is building evaluative capacity to answer one question: what is inside the model, and can its outputs be trusted in high-stakes settings? Traceability and external oversight are not features added when stakes are high enough. They are the architecture. Principled stewardship at the Anthropic scale means governing AI that writes the majority of your production code, maintaining human review as the quality gate, tracking model versions against output quality, and being transparent enough to publish the numbers publicly rather than obscuring them. The engineer's role is described as directing and reviewing rather than typing. That is still human judgment in the loop, but it is a qualitatively different form of human judgment than authoring. The cognitive demand shifts from code production to code evaluation. The governance question is whether valuation capacity is scaling as fast as production volume. Publishing the 80% figure, rather than marketing around it, is itself a governance act. It gives the broader landscape data it needs. Organizations that obscure their AI usage levels from their regulators, boards, or clients are making a different governance choice with different risk consequences. Principled stewardship at the NZ enterprise scale means something more immediate, understanding what your teams are already doing, classifying the autonomy levels of tools deployed, and not discovering governance gaps through a production incident in late 2027. The organizations that will not be in that 40% are the ones that treat governance as a precondition for deployment, not a retrospective audit after something fails. 3 preconditions before governance can function. Map the authorship trail on your AI-assisted outputs. Classify the autonomy levels of the agents you have deployed, and document the provenance chain before you ship, not after something has failed in production.
The authorship inversion holds at Anthropic as a confirmed, documented, primary sourced fact. It is visible to varying degrees in open source development infrastructure. Whether it will generalize across regulated enterprises is open, and the EU regular trajectory suggests it will be answered through law before most organizations have finished thinking it through. The arc is clear. More than 80% of one organization's production code is already on the far side of the authorship inversion. The governance frameworks for that world are still being written. What are you seeing in your organization's deployment pipeline? Have you mapped the authorship trail on your AI-assisted outputs? Drop your answer in the comments below.
That is the Hamberger report for today. If this was useful, subscribe and hit the like button. It helps more professionals find the channel. You will find links to everything we covered in the description below. I am Andreas Hamberger, and I will see you tomorrow.
Like and subscribe.